We all know that North Myrtle Beach is the place to be if you want to experience our state dance, shag. And we all know that before 1968, the name North Myrtle Beach didn't even exist. But here are some facts I bet you didn't know.
The spring cleaning, well, we didn't have no sheetrock walls at this time. And all the ladies would get together and everybody had a wash pot that would hold maybe, I don't know, say 5 or 6 gallons of water. And all of them pots, if they had 10 pots, you got to keep Fargo into all of them, because you empty this one, you fill it back up, and the ladies bring in the water out of the next one. And they would take that water and throw it up, and that hot water would drain down the ceiling, and while it was draining down, then the other lady got a broom and brushing it and cleaning the walls. And once they finished with that, it looked like you done put up another paint job. It was all pretty.
Clean wood, and the mattresses were, we had to like roll the mattress. It was in a tick called a mattress tick. And you had to roll it and smooth it out. And oh, that was the best sleep you got that night after sunning the mattress and doing those things of that kind. And it's like I say, you could smell the cleanness of the solution they had of lye and mothballs and stuff, where they stowed her in there to clean the walls and so forth. Where some people I've gone to, they would take pasteboard and nail up to cover the holes and to keep the draft out, and they would have all kind of newspaper, and we throw that in the garbage. Now they had plastered on the wall to keep the draft out, but to make, because couldn't afford to close them up.
Comfortable sleeping.
And so these were the things that we did, and we'd go under the house. The house is up on stilts, and you go under the house and rake out all those cans, all the litter that flew under there. We would have to do that out from under the house and so forth. So these are the things that I remember as a child that we had to do.
My background is hospitality field, and we operated several motels. And at the time I came to the beach, I was operating a Holiday Inn. We unfortunately didn't have any retirement, and our purpose in coming to the beach was to create one. And we bought a small rental business. We had 4 apartments and then added another, and we lived in one. So we had 6 apartments and a second-row duplex. And the apartments were oceanfront, of course. And we had quite a time. My wife ran it, and I worked at other things. And was the maid on Saturdays and Sundays. But it was a very interesting thing. People told us when we came that we would have to take whomever came in, and we didn't do that. We lived there, so we kind of picked and chose and wound up with a very, very good following. People that I still, even to this day, stay in touch with.
Fishing here wasn't, to the farmer, okay? Fishing wasn't just fishing for fun. We were fishing for food. And what we did, when we fished on the beach down here, and we fished with the nets. And it was commercial fishing and food fishing. We would go right down here at Tilghman Beach down there, and from Tilghman Beach all the way down Cherry Grove, East Cherry Grove, and all between, we would fish. And we had, we call them haul nets. These haul nets were sometimes about 250, 300 yards long. And they're about 20 to 30 feet deep. You had a lead line and a cork line, and you take it out on the back of a boat, and you go out and you make a semicircle out there, and if you're catching mullet, if you're fishing for mullet, but you have a lookout, and we'd go way up the beach, and you'd see in the breakers mullet running through the breakers and jumping. And if you see a good haul, then you call the guys to, hey, go to sea. And they would take the boat then and go out and head them off and cut them off out there and come around. And then you take the staffs, the ends of the net, one on shore and the other one, and you pull it back in and surround the fish, and you pull them into the shore. For spots, and spots was a major eating fish here. Mullets, we like mullets too, but spots was the major fish here. You catch spots out there, and sometimes we'd have the net completely full until we couldn't even pull it in. I mean, from staff to staff, they would be up there. We had them out there until we couldn't pull the net in. We'd have to hold the net there until the tide falls. And then we'd had these big pitchforks that would pick them up and put them in boxes and put them on trucks. And we used to sell a lot of them. Fact is, we sell most of them.
Well, my husband and I, when we had the opportunity, enjoyed going down and walking on the beach. And the surf club, of course, which was the club that he joined when he came to the beach, there were a group of them that would go down to the beach back in the 60s and 70s, and they would have get-togethers and cookouts on the beach at 11th Avenue. That access now, of course, is gone, but I say we enjoyed going out when we had the opportunity to walk on the beach. I can remember when I came here back in the early 50s that you could walk 200, 400 yards out on the beach and still be just standing in ankle-deep water. So that's no longer as it was. The tide situation there has changed a lot. But I love fishing. As a youngster, I went fishing a lot with my dad, but I never got into it here. Just stayed too busy with the golf.
After Hurricane Hazel, which was in '54, we lost our home, and we lost everything. And luckily, my dad had a house on the second row that was a rental house, and it survived, so we ended up moving in there. But after that, real estate sales weren't happening, and my dad virtually had very little money, and I can remember people leaving things at our back door because he would trade property for groceries. I don't know if I'm... I.J. Lohman had the red and white on Main Street. It was the only grocery store in town. And we'd go in there, and I just remember my mother signing tickets for it, and I thought, how nice that is. You just go sign and you take food home. But I didn't know that my dad was trading it out for property. But he did a lot of wonderful things for people. The churches around here, the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, the Lutheran Church, and the Episcopal Church. He, and I have to say his three siblings, they all gave those churches the property in which they're on. And the library, which is now going to be the museum, my dad and my mother gave the property for that. But the surf club, I don't think a lot of people know this, but it was in the master plan for Tilghman Estates, right where it is. And the way that worked, as I remember, my family, who is my dad's brother and two sisters, they retained 51% of the stock for that. And then the rest of it was sold to whoever wanted it. So they never really sold property to anybody.
As a child, that was the only place we had to go for recreation. My mom and my dad would put us in the car on Sunday afternoons when we were on the farm. We would go to Atlantic Beach, and we would play in the water, and we would have pictures taken. You know, they had the studios. We still have some pictures of those studios. And at that time, we felt completely safe. We would go to Atlantic Beach. When I grew up to be a teenager, I worked at the garden patio and sent myself to college. I am a self-educated person because my mother was not able to send me to college, and by that time my father had passed. I worked at Atlantic Beach at the garden patio to send to pay my college tuition. I asked my boss if he would just hold my paychecks for me every week, and I just used my tips. And at the end of the year, after he would pay me, he would always give me a nice bonus. But I sent myself to college working on Atlantic Beach. We would just go down, well, many of us worked during the day, and we would just walk up and down the beach half the night and get up the next morning and go back to work. But we were down there having clean fun. We were not into drugs and alcohol and violence. Many of the high school students worked on Atlantic Beach. We would work during the day. We would get together at night just to enjoy the beach. We never had to worry about anything bad happening to us. We would walk from the Atlantic Ocean to Highway 17 2 or 3 times within the night. And my brother Emery became the mayor of Atlantic Beach. He had a business down there. We still went to the beach. He had a motel. I had 2 brothers. My brother Lee Grant had the Levon Motel on the beach. So we grew up on Atlantic Beach. And at that time, we felt safe being on Atlantic Beach.
They would make quilts. She and her neighbors, they used to go from house to house. Whoever put up a quilt, they would come and help that one out. And the scraps and all of that, it would never be any scraps laying around because they would they'd all be used up when time they got through with making the quilts. And they used to sit around. Those old ladies, when the young people, no youngsters, they can say no young'uns was allowed. If you go happen to go, they might call you to bring them something. You take it and you put it down and you go on back where you came from. Yeah, it was a social time for them. They enjoyed it. I could now. Back then, I couldn't tell, but now I see that was enjoyment for them. They talked about the husbands, yeah, and the husbands and the neighbors too, and a whole lot of stuff they used to say. But right now, I know what they were talking about, but then I didn't. If a girl was pregnant, got pregnant, and somebody got pregnant, they would talk about that, and they would say something else, and I would say, what nobody talking about? But they called it something because they was didn't want me to know what they were us to know what they were talking about.
Cherry Grove's great, okay? Except if you got children. You want to raise them there. Some people might like it, but we didn't. It was too loud. One Sunday morning, my wife woke me up and said, look what's going on over here. Next door, rental house, all these girls that were at that time cocktail waitresses down at Howard Johnson's, that's now the Sands Ocean Club, were out topless on their front porch. Didn't give a hoot about anything. Didn't bother me, but she didn't like it. And plus they were having all these boys over there. They'd bring the band home at 5 o'clock in the morning. You'd hear them tuning up guitars out there. And we were next door. We had to buy an air conditioner to keep the racket out, whereas we had central air already. Stick something in the window just to keep the place quiet. And so we had to get out of there. And so we saw this place at Cedar Creek. It was, as a crow flies from the beach, it's just less than a mile. But it's like being elsewhere. It's got hardwood trees. It didn't have any paved roads back then, and in fact, it was 20 years before they were paved. And there's still to this day, there's no sewer there. Everybody's on a septic tank. The lots are all approximately 4/10 of an acre, big enough. I like it out there, and we've been there for over 30 years. Don't tell my wife. She wouldn't like me blabbing about it, but we have the same carpet that we had when the house was built. Pretty neat. Good carpet. Williams carpet down here.
So as you can see, we're hard at work documenting history for the future North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. And here's one more fact. We need you. Come join us in our effort to preserve North Myrtle Beach area history.